The Risk Multiverse. How CROs are managing chaos across markets, artificial intelligence, geopolitics and climate. El mundo ya no vive en línea recta, vive en múltiples dimensiones de riesgo económicas, tecnológicas, ambientales, digitales. En este multiverso no hay tiempo para el error. Bienvenidos a The Risk Multiverse, una mesa donde se reúnen las voces más influyentes del planeta en administración de riesgos financieros. Expertos en crédito, en inteligencia artificial, en ESG, en regulación, en modelos cuantitativos. Han escoreado millones de clientes, supervisado portafolios multimillonarios y enfrentado las crisis más complejas del siglo XXI. Hoy nos revelan cómo el riesgo ya no se mide en silos. Se cruza, se acelera y se multiplica. La inteligencia artificial redefine los modelos de crédito. El quantum computing reta los marcos regulatorios y el cambio climático se ha convertido en una nueva fuente de volatilidad financiera. ¿Estamos listos para esta nueva realidad? ¿Tenemos las herramientas para prevenir, responder y evolucionar? Este panel es una lección viva sobre cómo liderar desde el riesgo y cómo convertir la complejidad en estrategia. Porque quien domina el multiverso del riesgo, domina el futuro del sistema financiero. Para profundizar en el tema nos acompañan Alfonso de Lara, autoridad en gestión del riesgo financiero. Brad Pennington, presidente de Financial Products PayJoy. Beatriz Muñoz, Chief Financial Officer de BBVA. Ed Saf, CEO y fundador de Seed Risk Co. Daniela Centeno, Director, Collateral Risk Analytics. Y para moderar el panel, Alejandra Martínez, Independent Board Director Mexico and US, founder of the BE Board Empowerment Program for Female Board Directors. Les damos la más cordial bienvenida al Risk Management and Trading Conference 2025.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Risk Multiverse. And thank you for my panelists here, you can Google them. They are really top class, all of them. Nowadays, risk is no longer confined to financial or operational. It is really dynamic, complex, extended, multicultural, multi-event, multi-crisis, and uncertain, which is really what CRO's function has always been, deal with this environment. However, it has unfolded into a more complex way of doing things that require better and more effective skills. So our discussion today will explore the current environment that entities and specialists have to deal with, how the CRO role has evolved, and also AI and other types of methodologies and how all these available new tools can help us cope with this new environment. So let me start with the first question. And the first one has to do with how are organizations taking on this risk? Are they just complying with a certain regulation? And we are talking about operational, financial, climate, reputational. Our multiverse is all these kinds of risks. So are organizations really taking it just for compliance, or are they really being dynamically doing things for a better business to handle? Why don't you start, Eres?
Yeah. Gracias. Thank you and happy to be here. I think the CRO model today, as we know, is a bit evolving and changing, and it's touching exactly the point you said. The question of, am I just meeting compliance? Do I have a textbook? You just need to check V and answer the question and that's it? Or I need to be innovative. I need to understand what's going on in the market. I need to understand the different dynamics and the changes that's happening around me and to adapt my organization to be in front and not in the back. And I think today, if I'm a CRO of the type of checking V's, I'm kind of missing the opportunity and I might be putting my company in danger in the near future. Because the world is changing so rapidly, AI is everywhere, and everyone's using new tools and new technologies and new opportunities. I need to I need to put attention to it, and I need to make sure I'm putting my business in the right mode, in the right innovative cycle to tackle those challenges.
Right, right. And how is BBVA Beatriz doing this? How are they approaching this new environment?
Well, I think that BBVA is accustomed to face different environments and different challenges. But attending to your question, Alejandra, I think that in terms of how CROs and CFOs, in my case, are dealing with it, I think that is a total change in the role that we used to have. I think that in the past, I think that especially CFOs were like the guardians of the past, trying to explain everything, trying to be accountant of what has happened in the latest results and the latest balance sheet. But in order really to add value, we need to be much more forward looking. So just looking at the past is not enough. So anticipating is much more important than explaining. So I think that in that respect, I think that there is, in order to face and deal with all these different scenarios, the anticipation and this scenario screening is totally key. And especially to drive all the organization towards value creation. So I think that in the past, probably in the banking system, we were too focused on market share, volumes, revenues. But now it's much more important to see different metrics to really account for value creation. So how much capital are you consuming? What are the risks that you are facing? And try to assess what is the downside and the opportunities and in order to guide the business units.
I see.
So I think that the role has changed a lot.
Right, right. And in this multiverse, we have now new geopolitical situation, no, that has been addressed in several of the panels before and the keynotes. And so, Daniela, how do you see handling of these new kinds of risks within the organizations, and what kind of computing and other types of resources you have to use to be coping with these kinds of risks, geopolitical, and all that, this volatility existing?
Well, I think the geopolitical risk has always been present. Organizations in banking have always devoted resources just to understand the environment in which we are giving credit. One thing that I would like to focus on is on the existential question that climate risk is asking us right now, relating to the infrastructure that needs to be built for AI. We know that the current infrastructure is not sufficient. We know that the demand is going to increase. And we also know that this is not going to stop, because the way that we're approaching all this is that it's a race between US and China. The Gen AI revolution is really at the intersection of this geopolitical power struggle. The country that has the energy, that has the computing power, i.e. the GPUs, and that has the algorithms is the country that will prevail. At this point, it's a matter of who scales the fastest. And in order to scale the fastest, we have China already building 10 new nuclear plants. The World Bank recently in June lifted its ban to fund nuclear projects. This is a significant change because the only nuclear project that the World Bank had ever funded was in 1959. This is signaling to other multilateral banks that it's okay to embrace nuclear power in order to fulfill the energy demands with low carbon emissions. Unfortunately, we know that building takes time and takes money. So building will take time, and I think that in the near term, the fossil fuels will continue to exist, which are not very good news for the Paris Accords.
And compounding all that view with the technology and the race to dominate that world, we have another topic that systematically is changing the relationships among countries, and those are the tariffs, Brad. Given that PayJoy acts in several countries around the world, what has happened with that?
Yeah, that's right. So even though we're a relatively small organization, or relative to BBA, a small organization, we actually operate in 9 emerging markets, and we hedge our entire book, both on the lending side as well as on the cash generating side. And the biggest impact that we have seen from tariffs is increasing the cost of risk. And I think that's something that you've seen really in the risk management space in general, right? It's decision-making under uncertainty, and we want to make more decisions more quickly, and there's more uncertainty. And I think that's why there's been so much more investment and why you're hearing kind of this increased scope of role that the other panelists are talking about is, now it's you want to acquire a company? Well, that's a decision under uncertainty. Let's bring the risk team in. So
I see. And another the element in all this geopolitical and volatility happening, there's supply chain. So, Eres, how would you be helping, or how can organizations deal with this disruption in supply chain?
That's a great question. And I think that we need to understand that as we move forward in the world and the changes, we can't focus on a single business and saying, I know the business because I know the applicant, I know the owner, I know their profit and loss from 2 years ago. It doesn't give me the story, it doesn't give me what I need in order to make a decision, a wise decision. Today we need to understand the entire network of effect. We need to understand if he's importing products from China, or God forbid, is he importing aluminum from the US. We need to understand who does he sell to. Does he sell in Polanco, or does he sell in Quintana Roo? And there's a hurricane coming into Quintana Roo next week, so I need to consider it. The network effect is much more important, and we saw it in COVID, we saw it after it, we see it today. Everything is dynamic and change, and we need to take everything in consideration when we make a decision or backing up a company or someone's story.
And something that, thank you, Ares, and something that we didn't really expect that could be related to providing services, and that were not or was not related and happened to have a systemic impact in the financial system in Mexico was the Vincent order. So, Alfonso, could you comment on what is that effect and how would organizations and entities would be handling reputational risk?
We are now seeing the very recent interventions by the CNBV of 2 banks with precisely reputational risk in prevention of money laundering. I think it's a matter, what we are talking about this is a matter of the amount of resources that the bank allocate in systems and people and controls for money laundering and to avoid this reputational risk. There is an article that the name is Crime and Punishment, an Economic Approach, but it says that we are talking about incentives. So the behavior of the banks depend on 2 things. The first one is the amount of the penalties or the fines, and the second is the likelihood or the probability to be caught. So if there is a little value in this amount, the more cost effective is not allocate resources to this kind of risks. But on the other hand, if you are going to lose the bank, the amount of penalty is huge, and you should allocate the resources immediately. So what we are saying today? That is the first time that the shareholders of, say, Banco and Intercam and Vector is going to lose the bank, everything, because the lack of allocation resources in systems and people to comply effectively.
So we're really seeing that CRO's abilities have grown in scope and diversity. We need to really have an exceptional team handling all these these various elements to cope with the new environment. So, Alfonso, could you take us to how has it evolved in time in the financial system in Mexico?
Well, we know now that these two banks is going to be lose completely. We don't know if there are other banks that is going to be audited in money laundering, in prevention of money laundering. But I think the rest of the banks should be prepared very quickly, because we have the threat that is real from the United States, from the FinCEN, which is very real, and we are going to have, in the meantime, Donald Trump is president of the United States, that we have 3 years more, at least. So I think they should review their processes and allocate resources, economic resources, to the systems, the people, etc.
Right. And we in the past, we had a function of a CRO probably just complying with the reports to the banking regulators and to other sectors regulators. But currently, CROs have to deal with those different types of risks. So how has this function evolved, Eres? How do we need to prepare to be handling this multi-risk environment, and what kind of abilities, what kind of relationships within the organization, outside of the organization, and how reliable could be this function for the CEO of the entity or even the board of directors?
Amazing. And I think it's connected to the FinCEN incident that we talked about. And I give a quick example, a short, simple example to have an effect of two different CROs or CFOs that are managing a crisis in different ways. One will be passive, will do the same as we've done for the past 50 years or more. When you do any financial transaction or any lending to a business, you will ask, okay, who is this business? Is this business connected to OFAC list, SAT blacklist 69V? It's okay. Okay, let's do the transfer. And that's probably what Intercam Bank, NC Banco did. I have no idea. I'm just assuming. And let's take a different CRO or a CFO, a more proactive, who's saying, wait, we have the technology today and the very cost effective, not just to check the specific person or a business, but we can check all the directors in the company. We can check all the clients, all the suppliers, making sure none of them is part of the OFAC list. None of them is part of 69B. None of them put any alerts, whistle that there's going to be a problem. This proactive approach, and I can tell you that some banks and some financial institutions are doing today, will avoid those pitfalls, will avoid those cases of financing those unique cases that can put you in harm's way or can put you in danger. I think this is the major change that we see. You cannot be passive and do the same as in the past. And as Beatriz said, you need to be forward-looking and to change as the dynamic change in the market change. And people like this will be much more successful, and the organization will be more successful as we move forward.
Right, right. But how difficult, Daniela, is to implement that transformation, that digital and technological transformation?
Oh, if we look at just some statistics on AI proofs of concept, the majority of them fail. And the majority of them have failed because the data is not there. Or the data was there, but it wasn't very well curated. So the challenges are really in the implementation of the models that everybody has now access to through this commoditization of AI. But using our own data is very difficult. Most of the organizations haven't really curated their data, clean it up, being ready to be used by the models. That's one aspect. The other aspect is obviously the upskilling of people. We have, or all the organizations have, subject matter experts. We need to bring those subject matter experts as part of the digital transformation. They are the ones that have information that is not reflected in the data of today. And they are the ones who will enable the digital transformation. So make sure to keep those people in your organization, make them feel valuable, bring them into the change.
And that is quite a challenge, right?
It's quite a challenge. People is always reluctant to challenge. But that's why it's so important to identify the key talent and bring it to the organization with existing people that already know how the organization works.
Right, right. And to really have an extraordinary and an exceptional team, we need metrics. And we need to involve several functions within the risk area. We have to deal with anti-fraud. We have to deal with delinquencies in the credit side. We have to deal with uncertainty in the market side. So, Brad, what kinds of metrics do you use to get this talent that we need to keep and bring it to the exceptional level such that we can keep them and we could keep being attractive within the organizations to have this talent incentivized?
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. So one thing I love to do that my team hates, so we're called financial products, not risk. And there's a reason for that. And that is we build full stack products that solve a problem. So if you're solving so we manage 30,000 physical points of sale across 9 emerging markets. You get a tremendous amount of fraud, unsurprisingly, when you are managing that network. And so one problem we ran into that kind of transformed us into financial products was solving this fraud problem, right? And it wasn't just an outlier detection problem. Like, yeah, we had to build some dynamic Bayesian filtering in order to figure out who's doing bad stuff, who's not doing bad stuff. It's also an operational problem because, 80% of the time, it's not totally clear if you should close this merchant location, log this clerk out of the system. You need someone to go in and make an investigation. And so I think one way that I found that really kind of empowers the team and has helped us scale is you present a full stack systemic problem. And that's why I would definitely encourage folks here that are kind of early in their career. This is one thing I've said in all the interviews I've had to date. You don't want to get super, super deep on any one specialty because computers might take out little pieces of that specialty. But the more you know about the system and optimizing it, the better you will be. That's that when we interact with boards, I've interacted with a number of boards. They want to give you money and they would like more money back. Like that is like the simplest and most beautiful system to them. And so the more you can think about the totality of that system and how you're solving the real business challenge, I think that's really the powerful piece of building those teams.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I believe that teams have evolved in time. And Alfonso, you've written a book about risk management, right? It's like in what edition now? The 4th edition. Now, how have you seen these teams evolve in time? We need these kinds of metrics. We have this technology. We have all these resources. How these teams have evolved in time?
I think that we have witnessed a dramatic change, from before 1970s to today, which is very complex, the banking evolution. Uh, I don't know if you remember that we don't have the capital charge until 1988 with Basel I. Then in 96, the capital charge for market and credit, and until 2004, the Basel II with operational risk also. The lending was very simple in the past. There was no syndicated loans. The retail credits did not exist until the credit bureau appeared. The derivatives in 2000 where Mexer emerged in Mexico, but also in the OTC market for derivatives, but only for hedging. Right now, the derivatives is a source of risk with structured notes, not only for hedging, and very complex derivatives, what we have now. But the main change that I see is the digitalization. The digital era is today. The bank, all the banks are working in the digitalize their processes, and next to digitalization is going to start the artificial intelligence. I think it's in early stages right now, the AI, but digitalization is a reality. So we have banks that are completely digital right now. So the dramatic change in technology and products and risks is amazing. So the CRO should be more prepared now than before, obviously. And I think the artificial intelligence is going to complicate more the banking evolution.
Definitely, but I think it opens up such a big scope of possibilities, but it also brings risk. So how are we handling those risks, and how are we taking advantage of all the possibilities and all the good things, as Tom was saying in his talk yesterday, to really introduce this new technology and to make sure that we're using it in an ethical way, and that we can minimize or contain the risk that it brings. Brad?
Yeah. So how are we containing the risk? So the one way that we have started to use AI is explainability of our automated pipelines. So right now, our machine learning team is only about nine folks, and we've actually purposely tried to keep it small by automating. And so we have a system in our anti-fraud where all of the countries every night they get a new fraud model that the machine builds. It self-selects that model, and then it posts in a channel an explanation of why the model was selected over the prior model, both in terms of the power of that model relative to the other models, the precision at the point where it makes the most impactful decision, and then also an explanation of all of the reasons and how those have shifted over time. And you hear this and you're like, oh my God, why are they letting the machine do all of these things? This must be terribly risky. But what we've actually found in practice as we've rolled these automated pipelines out and really focus on solving the whole system is it's a lot less risky than the much slower to market kind of approach. And if you use AI and use those tools correctly, you can actually increase the velocity of the decisions that you're making. And that's really the whole nature, I think, of the risk management position, right? It's making great decisions under high levels of uncertainty. The faster you can make better decisions, the better you and your team are doing at their role.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I believe that here in Mexico, Beatriz BBVA has been at the front of the race in all this. I know a couple of weeks ago, you announced Blue, which is the new AI agent, like the customer experience agent, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what can you tell us about AI in BBVA in the part of risk and finance that you handle?
Yeah, I think that AI is clearly a transformational thing for every kind of business. But in particular for the banking business, I think that it is clear that we are operating in a tech environment with a banking license. So I think that increasingly banking is a technology business and it's a business of scale. And I think that AI opens a bunch of new opportunities for the banking industry, from customer experience like this new application to fraud detection that is extremely important now these days, to uh, any kind of potential use and especially in terms of cost optimization and use of data. I think that it's clear that the banking system is very intensive in the use of data. So we have to extract value of all this information that we are capturing. For example, it is clear that, for example, BBVA has grown a lot in the SME business, in which you don't have proper financial statements in order to assess what is the credit quality of a very specific uh, enterprise or small business. But if you see and you are able to capture all the flows, all the information with the help of these new technologies, I think that the assessment that you can get is much more accurate than any financial score that or credit scoring system that you might have before. So I think it's very transformational and is going to help a lot in many different fields in terms of financial and non-financial risk.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So we talked about upskilling to have the possibility of taking advantage of AI. Is there something else that we need to take care of for diminishing the potential risk that this brings to the new use in every aspect of the business?
Yes. So first of all is mistakes. Mistakes. AI is very known about making mistakes. The problem is that BBVA is not known about making mistakes. It's actually known about not making mistakes. So when you're trying to mix it together, it might be a problem. So this is the way we need to be careful. So we need to apply AI in an area where we can control the mistakes, know them, or it's okay to make mistakes. And that's in the financial segment, not every place is possible. The second risk that we need to talk about is ethical risk. I met a company that uses AI to examine your credit score based on a picture. It takes a picture of you and decide if you're credible or not. This is the wrong usage of AI. Even if it's possible, theoretically, to go back in time and check for the past 20 years who are the people that have blonde hair or dark hair or this nose and are credible or not credible, this is not something we should use because we should allow people the option to have a proper financial behavior that makes sense to give them money. And if you are still thinking it might be wrong and maybe, oh, this is a good use case, I'll take you to the history of women-led businesses getting financed in Mexico or in Latin America. If I take the data in only statistical way, and I'm checking my data in the past 20, 50 years, the majority of successful businesses who got money and paid me back will be men-owned businesses.
Exactly.
But it's not because women are more likely to default. It's because just women or women-led businesses were not part of the equation at all. They were not getting enough space on the field to get the money.
And what do we do to not have those biases? How do we work around those?
There is a simple solution that we need to remember. We need human beings. We still need human beings to be in the process to make sure that you have ethical process, that not everything is data-based decision. We need to have people to review to make sure that you make data that makes sense and data that is related to financial behavior and not to the skin color or to the appearance or to the gender or anything else that makes us in a bad position, and we continue to have the same problems in the future as we had in the past.
Mhm. And can you speak a little bit more about that applied to individuals for getting credit? There is, I believe that there is interest in the SMEs, of course, because we have penetrated very low. But what about those kinds of biases for the scoring and for the evaluation on individuals?
Yes, you're right. It's the same, basically, if not even more, even worse. So, examples can be done as we said from appearance, but it will be done from gender. And then now there's been new ways of how fast you type on your phone,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll give you funding or not. And the problem here that again, this is a behavior that have no relationship with financial behavior. You know what? I will not be able to type faster if I want to get credit from a new bank. I need to have something that I can work on. So if I'm a person living in Roma Norte, I don't know a lot of neighbors in Mexico, so forgive me. But I live in Roma Norte and I want to get credit. I go to the bank, they tell me, sorry, your credit score is too low, we cannot give you credit. The bank should give me what I need to do in order to come back in 3 months and to be able to get credit. Should I get a higher salary? Should I have less expenses? Should I maybe spend money more on food and learning and not in casino or gas? I don't know. I'm just giving examples. But the idea is that I have a reasonable way to make myself more credible in the future. And this is the important part.
Right, right. Now let me turn and throw another question. Being a board member, I have seen that the being literate in AI or the possibilities or the implementation challenges that it implies or the kinds of metrics and the talent that you need within the organization is not standardized, let's say, or the knowledge is in different levels, let's say. So if you could speak to your board and ask your board for something about this trend and how you are approaching it and how could you make the best use of it for the future in terms of the risk function, what would you do? Each of you, what would you ask to the board?
I would ask them to invest mainly in the development of two frameworks that exist but need to be taken to the next level. The first framework is model risk management. Model risk management regulation exists since 2011, but it needs to evolve. And it needs to evolve in terms of tools. It already has a very vantage point for the organizations that have it in place because it has all the metadata about the models that exist across the organization. And if we switch the view only from risk management and controls to the view of, hey, I have this very valuable information about the models that I have in my organization. Therefore, I can identify what strategic opportunities I have and which models from vendors I can bring in, which models I need to uplift, which models maybe I can decommission, which data platforms I can combine. That will help to, in the long term, reduce also the costs. The second one, and it's very related, is just all the data management that needs to happen. Going back to not everything is data. Yes, not everything is data, but that data is created by humans.
Mm-hmm.
So we need humans to be creating that data, and that work is very labor intensive. There are many AI tools that help us in that labor intensive work, but at the end, it's humans that have the ability to understand the data in context. The most important thing here is context.
Okay.
And that will enable to give the next step.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
Alfonso, what would you ask your board to really make this happen?
I think the members of the board should have any specialization, and they have to give aggregate value to to the bank or the company. So I would ensure that we have the talent, the different talents, the different
Represented.
specializations, because it's impossible to have one person that knows everything. But it's very easy to have specialized people in different areas, no?
Right.
So
Right.
it's my opinion.
Right. Beatriz.
Well, I think that my recommendation will be not to underestimate a certain type of risk. We have a very clear example very recently with these three institutions, and you see how fragile is the banking business because it's just a business of trust. And I think that especially when you are dealing in a country like Mexico, those type of risks are particularly complex to address. So I think that to have a proper escalation of decision, a proper governance body before this board meeting, I think is extremely important. So I think that this just has happened is a clear example of what really matters. Reputation, trust is the only protection that banks has against competition of new entrants. So of course, fintech are extremely good competitors, but I think that the greatest protection that the banking system has is this regulation strength. So obviously, we need to ensure that our customers' money is very well preserved and protected. So I think that n- probably not to underestimate non-financial risk like climate, uh, money laundering, and all those things that probably are not the key factor that are presented in every board meeting. Probably the P&L, forecasting of potential results, the budget, all those things that takes all the attention, not to oversight everything that really matters as well.
Mhm. Brad?
Well, Ali's on my board, so I guess I get to ask.
What would you ask me?
Uh, I think the one thing is because I think as Beatrice had put it really nicely, it's sort of she's a banking license that's effectively operating in a technological ecosystem. One place where I haven't seen my boards kind of move is I love when I think boards are really effective when they're playing their role of fiduciaries, which means, are we sticking to budget? And it's very easy to measure your revenue, your profit, like these sorts of things. I think it's much harder to understand, are we sticking to the budget of the required pace of innovation so that our company is not totally obsolescent in 4 years? And so if a board could really figure out, whatever you want to make an investment, it's often it's a cost side thing, right? Like, I guess we can afford, $3 million and, updating our data infrastructure. But as you've heard everybody here say, the most foundational pieces driving value are those data pipelines, the way that you're managing those risks. And so I think if boards could get smarter about not just the cost side of the investment, but what value do you want to realize early on before the sort of exponential value of these technological investments accrue? I think that they would end up fostering and keeping accountable organizations that would scale much more much more quickly, and much more profitably.
I'll socialize it with my colleagues. And Eris, what would you recommend entities can ask, the CRO can ask to their boards?
I think, first of all, they need to ask for investment in understanding the market, understanding what is possible, what are the opportunities, and what are the changes. Because staying within your own company, your own realm, without getting the understanding of what's going on around you, will limit your your ability to make proper solutions and to take your company to the next level. I think it is extremely important. And as Brian said, the board is usually a very inward looking. Are you meeting your goals? Are you doing financials? Are you selling enough? Everything is working. But I think the board needs to put the investment, even require the board to required from their the CEO and the CRO and the CFO. You have to bring innovation in. It's easy to stay where you are, or it's not easy. It's always hard, but it's less complicated to bring something you don't know or learn something new. But if we don't force ourselves to go out and learn something new, we might lose the opportunity to do it in the right time. And that's what I think that the board should emphasize and encourage the organization to do, and set the investment required for it from time, value, and perspective.
Right. Thank you. I think boards are evolving, but you're right. They need to get literate about new technologies, about the speed at which everything is getting implemented, and the need for resources, not only economic resources, but also talent and the kind of training and abilities that they need to develop to be able to implement what is coming and what is already here to make the better use of it. So to finalize, I would like to ask you, and take all the time that you would like, I would like you to give our audience what I would call a wisdom capsule. Within this risk multiverse, what can you recommend that they could use in their everyday function, risk, financial, even board members that are here? What would you recommend as a wisdom capsule, each of you, that you could give our audience to finalize our panel? Whomever wants to start.
Well, myself, I will say that I think that we all look for sustainability in terms of returns and sustainable value. And I think in that respect, resilience is not something that you can choose between risk and returns. So I think that is precisely the specific calibration that you have to do every single time that you have to make a decision in order to assess what is that, in order to ensure that today's investment ensures profitability in the future in a sustainable way. So I think that you always have to have a balance, and that assessment in order for value creation and long-term perspective is what really matters.
So sustainable value creation, which is not minimizing risk and growing, but also like the whole picture. Sustainable long-term value creation, which would also relates to the metrics that they need to establish to really have metrics that all the team is working towards, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll go ahead, but I'll reframe the question a little bit. So we've been talking about what these new technologies are going to bring, how it will change the nature of work, the nature of risk management. But I would like to reframe the question in terms of understanding what is AI doing today, to the economy today. Because today we're already taking a lot of big risks on AI. With AI, we're seeing one of the biggest capital movements. According to Derek Thompson, in the last quarter, just for US, the expenditure in AI added more to US GDP than the expenditure just in consumer spending. In US is a consumer-based economy, so this is just mind-blowing. Morgan Stanley is expecting a $3 trillion expense just to build all the infrastructure of AI from now to 2029. Contrary to how cloud services were built, which were basically on the cash flow of these big tech companies, this time half of that $3 trillion will be with debt, will be funded with debt. If we remember, the tech companies represent about 34% of the S&P 500, financials another 15%, And if we now join them through that, we're starting to smell a little bit of a bubble or of just some concentration risk. So it's just something to start looking at. I don't want to be pessimistic, but hypes always create bubbles. These big technology changes have created bubbles in the past. We have seen it with the railroads in the 1800s, with the dot-com in the early 2000s. It wasn't the end of the world, but the bubbles were created, they busted, and the changes kept going.
Happy to continue.
Yes.
Perez, go for it, man.
Sure. So there may be a bubble, maybe not. I would be last one to know, but I think that AI will stay as the .com, the internet stayed and grew from it. I think that even if there is a bubble, AI will be here for a while. My recommendation is on a personal level. If you never build an app on vibe coding, you should stop everything tomorrow, Friday or Sunday, whenever you have a time, and go to one of the vibe coding apps and build an app. The app could be to call your mother and tell her you love her every hour, or the app can be wake me up in different times of day just for fun. It doesn't matter which app you're building, start building. Now, why is it important? Because I don't want you to be an app builder. This is not the goal. The goal is to start feeling what's going on. The same as ChatGPT 6 months, 1 year ago. If I tell you use ChatGPT, before you use ChatGPT, you wouldn't understand what does it mean. But now it's very clear, right? The same as vibe coding and app building. In a year from now, the market of building apps that are not part of the IT infrastructure, that are not built by developers and coders, will be huge. Be the first on your community who's starting to build and understand it so you can have the benefit in the future. And if I connect it to what we've discussed today, it can be the app around data, financial, and risk, even better. It gives you more tools to understand what is possible today in the market, and then it will brighten or widen your horizons.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess there's been a lot of talk about the computing side and kind of automation, but I would actually say, my advice would be, if you're out there building teams, build an exceptional team. And if you're out there trying to be a part of a team, be an exceptional team member. And exceptional team members or exceptional teams, they'll listen to what Era said. They're going to go, they're going to figure it out, and they're going to figure out a way to bring that to their daily work. And those kinds of teams are exactly what you need in place in this world where things are so dynamic and there are so many risks. When we got that call that Sabanco was getting put on the naughty list, it was probably not as bad a day for me as the CEO of Sabanco, but I was somewhere up there because we put all of our money through those guys. Just like a lot of folks that buy assets in Mexico do, because they had a big trustee business there. And so, AI was not going to figure out how to save our treasury function in, 7 days, but Alejandra and our exceptional team, they were able to figure out how to save our treasury business. And, that's a pretty powerful testament, I think, to what happens when you can build those exceptional teams.
Thank you. Alfonso.
Well, I would say that we have to manage the risk in a holistic view, not in silos like in the past, because the risks are related each other. Credit and market are related with liquidity risk. Obviously, they are very related. And the emerging risks, the new risks that we have today, like the cyber risk. Cyber risk is very dangerous, potential loss. So we have to see in a holistic view, because all of them are going to the well-managed, or all of them are going to contribute to the maximizing the franchise value. At the end, what we want all of us is to maximize the franchise value.
Thank you. Thank you. So really what we've heard is CRO function has to grow to have exceptional abilities, to build exceptional teams, to really see this multiverse holistically and to develop all these abilities required, but also ask for the resources and develop the resources, whatever you need to cope with the new environment. Thank you very much to all, and thank you all of you for being here. Thanks.